So Misty asks, in a therapeutic relationship, everyone is having certain needs and is being compensated in different ways. And I'm just curious how we go about, I'm just curious how, as practitioners, we go about making sure that nature is cared for and being invited in and accepting the role of healer and is being offered something in return. Interesting question. Another good idea, and this is definitely so in the context of Australia, excuse me, and as someone who's worked with indigenous populations around the world, I never took seriously, and this was a massive limitation to my work, I never took seriously how 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 much history indigenous peoples have had and the impact of colonization. And it really took, for instance, my supervisor's backyard backs up to this beautiful national park. And he goes out there and hikes there all the time. He asked one of our indigenous colleagues about, oh, is there any history to this land? And they said, yes, you see that tree back there? That's a sacred birthing tree only for women's business. Men weren't supposed to go there. Now, is that physically giving back to a tree? Not really. But at the same time, it's really taking care to know where you are, to know the history, to leave no trace, to take care of where we are, things like that. So when we learn more about the history and we bring that history into our sessions, I think it actually really helps the client to bring the nature to life. It brings like all the, like, so for instance, like last weekend when I went snorkeling, we spent the night with an elder, Uncle Ken. He's a Boandic man. That's one of the Aboriginal mobs here in Australia. And Boandic people have had almost no history left. It was almost totally wiped out. And Ken was a researcher and a historian, and he's brought all this stuff back. He's written all these books. And it's amazing. We're sitting and camping, and my wife, she's an amazing cook, bought all this fish for us because they were on the water. And so they were water people. And we asked Ken, what would be fish you'd eat? Can you help us prepare it? And you'd go and you'd find saltbush, and then you'd go find sandfire, which is like a wild asparagus that grows near certain ocean climates. And now you're looking at the land very differently. You're looking at it like a supermarket. And so if you really take time to get to know the area you're adventuring, it brings more opportunity to life. It brings more opportunity to what there is to learn from it. And there is an ethical stance about caring for the environment that most of us outdoor folk really think about. That said, if that's your value, such an important value, and you can teach that to your client. However, if that is not your client's value, you're never going to teach your client your values. So we can't just go out and tell them, don't you see how important it is to clean up the planet? Because then we're lecturing, and that's not necessarily our role as a therapist person. But that said, I'd embed it in some of the work. I'd embed the history. I would embed, we're going snorkeling at this reef. Here's what this reef looked like 200 years ago. And here's what bleaching does. See what you notice about these changes. Because not only that, there's so many metaphor in teaching about not taking care of our home, not making sure our home is clean, not putting good stuff into your body. All of these notions that can be so important. But also, a lot of people discuss the idea of, is nature the healer? It certainly can be. But the reason you're there as the practitioner is to facilitate that. So if nature is just a place to adventure, it might not be the healer per se, you might be. So I think we have to be willing to bounce back and forth through, we're sitting on top of a mountain having this experience of awe. The client leaves. The client might go home and think you facilitated that, which is fine. That makes you someone who is you're the person that facilitated a positive experience this person didn't believe was possible, or it was nature, and both are perfectly well and good. So I think privileging one over the other, or thinking we can't know what this person is making meaning out of until we ask them. And we have to, if they're making meaning and it's positive, we shouldn't really care about why they're doing it or how they're doing it. One of my best mentors said, the best therapist gets no thank you notes because the client feels like they did it themselves. So if they did it themselves, if they made meaning themselves, which most of us believe, people have the innate ability to take meaning away from anything. It's our job to help them debrief and understand and contextualize that meaning so it's consolidated in a way that they can try to make it happen throughout their lives.